Thank you. So you should be seeing my screen now. So welcome and thank you very much to Dan for the opportunity to do this town hall. This is about image viewing and annotation, obviously using the XNAT OHIF Viewer. And so before I go any further, let me just do a quick introduction for the panel who are going to be helping answer any questions. And so we've got Lorena Escudero Sanchez from the University of Cambridge, we've got James Darcy from the Institute of Cancer Research, and we've got Mo Alsad from Imperial College London. And all of these are developers on the NCTA team that I talked about yesterday. So the main function of the town halls is for you guys to get the opportunity to ask questions. So I'll keep the bit that I present very short. So just 2 minutes on how we got to where we are now. So I first talked about this project to Dan at the XNAT Workshop 2016. So there's a little shout out. My favorite T-shirt is actually the one from Rotterdam, but I seem to have mislaid that. So we talked about it then and really started working in earnest in 2017. We produced the first sort of vaguely working version thanks to a really talented coder called James Petts, who's now left for industry and to do consultancy in precisely this sort of stuff. Since NCTA started, we've carried on developing, carried on improving. The next milestone was the 2.0 release of the viewer, which was the first to really start to feature annotations. And since that time, Mo has been working really, really hard on the whole project and has been the driving force behind many of the front-end innovations. James has been doing the back end in XNAT, and Lorena has been working on the machine learning a lot. So we released, at the same time as XNAT 1.8, we released a new version 3 with whole new features. And I'm delighted to announce that since then, we've released 3.01, and now hopefully Mo can tell us a bit later about the new release candidate for version 3.1, which will be available very shortly, I hope. So what do I think we've actually achieved? So the most important thing I think is completely seamless integration with XNAT, and that includes a really nice project navigator shown on the left of the screen here, and that's something that's not in the original OHIF distribution at all, and especially done for XNAT. We've done a lot of work on regions of interest and editing contours and masks. We've got some basic viewing. We've now got a lot of the tools you expect from a common, from a PACS. We've done the integration with machine learning, and as I showed yesterday, the microscopy support is in alpha version. So what do we have still to do? Oops, that's interesting. Right, what do we have still to do? I won't go into presenter view. Oh yeah, maybe I will. Let's see if that actually works. Oh yeah, okay. Let's do that. So we want to release microscopy. You seeing? I hope you guys are seeing my presenter view there. We want to release the microscopy. We want to do quite a bit of work on image overlays because we have some projects that need it, and in general, everywhere is going to need fusion of PET CT, for example, and so this is something that is actually harder than it looks, but we think it's doable, and we're hoping to work on that a lot more this autumn. We want to work, I'm hoping to work with Winshan. So here's and Wash U. So here's a shout out to the work, the great work that's been done on the Rapid Reader application. And we see lots of future potential for going further with this. And so, and the last thing there is we're very interested in the whole business of copying ROIs between series and between sessions. So on the left-hand side, you can see, well, actually it's the right-hand side is the original region of interest, and how well can we copy that region of interest into different scans, different sessions that have completely different resolution, may not be co-registered. What can we do in this area? So finally, I just want to, oops, that seems to have not worked. Finally, I wanted to talk about Nifty and respond to the comment that Mark made yesterday. Why is Nifty problematical? Well, I hope James Darcy is going to tell us a bit more about why that is at the moment. Hi, Mark. Yeah, why is it problematical? What should we do about it? And given that Dan just announced yesterday that the merger with Flywheel, can we leverage some support from there? And lastly, any other open questions that you might have, and particularly one that I'm interested in getting feedback from is what should the limits of the viewer be? So I just put it down here. The OHIF viewer is not 3D slicer. Discuss what should we, what should our aspirations be? What do you as a community want? So thanks very much. I'll stop sharing. And so without more ado, please ask some questions. I don't know how we want to pick questions. I see two in there already. Would you please, okay, loads of questions. Would you please elaborate further on the OHIF viewer integration with machine learning? So Mo, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's no direct integration with the machine learning process itself, rather than connecting with the NVIDIA AI AA server as a front-end client that sends requests to run different models from Clara, both version 3 and version 4. So I'm sorry, the question is a bit generic, but this what type of integration we have with the viewer currently?
Yeah, so we're acting as a front-end window, if you like, on what NVIDIA can do with their Clara system, and what you guys can do by inventing new models that work with Clara. But not just that. I mean, before, I'll come to Lorena next. I was going to say it doesn't necessarily have to be NVIDIA. In the future, we can foresee situations where the viewer, like I say, is a window onto different systems. Lorena first, then Dave, maybe?
Yes, I was just going to add that the integration that we have at the moment allows you to run the inference of your model or your own model or models provided by NVIDIA Clara directly from the viewer. So if you remember, if you've seen yesterday's talk by Ramona Wojtek, she showed a demo in which she presented this, in which you could see that directly from the images open in the viewer, you could be running these models, either Clara ones or your own one that you can integrate there. And it's basically that, running the inference and bring it back directly in the viewer, the segmentation that you can see directly on top of the images, and then you can edit and so on.
Yeah. Okay. Dave next.
Thanks, Simon. I mean, I think the OHIF viewer is great, and the rapid reader looks really interesting. Is that tied to a data type? So do people make a custom data type, and that data type can be put in the rapid reader, or is it completely separate from an XNAT data type? Yeah, so this is the bit that we're hoping to make particular progress on. So at the moment, Wunchan's prototype is tied to a particular data type. And Wunchan, if you want to say something, do come in and comment. But that's quite inflexible because adding a new data type is a sort of admin type job in your XNAT, and
in our experience, not one that you want to do lightly, because they're quite difficult to delete off your system once you've done it. So what we're really looking at, and this is one for Rick, to bump it as high up the priorities as he can. Please, can we introduce a new JSON type field into XNAT, so we can make a single schema which will be like I don't know, new report type, right? So you just create a report which has JSON elements, and then into that you can put whatever you like, and you can define any sort of annotation report, electronic case report form, etc. And you can put that in the right-hand panel. So this would then allow it to be very flexible, and you could configure, rather than on a whole XNAT level, you could configure on a project by project level what forms are available for that project and so on.
Yes.
Simon, can I interrupt for just a second? A couple people have put questions in, and as they're doing that, I am allowing them to speak.
Yep.
So, and that just in general to everybody, you know, if you put a question in and I see your name, we will allow you to unmute yourself, which would make it a little bit more interactive and a little bit less of Simon having to reread the questions.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
So you just have to unmute yourself if you want to speak up. We'll allow that.
Right, so I'm sort of, I can actually see the questions, and I'm sort of scrolling through them. I'm just basically taking them in order at the moment. So so Mark, you've got do you want to do your top question?
Sorry, I'm on my phone, so I don't know which one is.
Okay, your top.
I'll switch to the laptop. But basically, I was asking if you know already about the file format that you want to support for microscopy, because I mean, they are slightly different from the radiological viewer, where we've got hierarchy of the data stored at different zoom levels. So I'm just wondering if you already decided.
Okay, so basically, and this goes with your Nifty question a bit earlier, the OHIF viewer out of the box, vanilla OHIF viewer supports DICOM, right? It's designed, the whole thing is designed around DICOM. And obviously slides come in many different vendor specific formats. But there's this thing called Open Slide, which is which essentially as I understand it, a toolkit that allows you to convert many different vendor formats into DICOM. So where we're at the moment is that we've just been playing about with that, and it's certainly I won't hide the fact that it's certainly not completely transparent exactly which settings you need in the converter to create DICOMs that are viewable in the OHIF viewer. We haven't gone very far down that rabbit hole yet, but I imagine that there's going to be quite a bit of work to figure out which things are compatible. And Steve might be able to help here, because Steve does, in his other role, organizes lots of connectathons and things like that. And I know he's very active on DICOM Working Group 26. So I don't know whether you want to comment, Steve.
Simon, I'm sorry I lost the context because I was working on management of allowing people to speak. So I'm sorry.
Okay, I won't call in you again, Steve. You've really got your hands full there. The question was simply, in your capacity as resident connectathon expert, and particularly on Working Group 26 of DICOM, do you see lots of scope for different getting genuine DICOM out of a lot of different manufacturer formats for microscopy data?
So I'll try to be brief. The vendors in that area are very keen to make that work using DICOM Web. And so there's been a lot of work in the last 3 years on behalf of the vendors. They're now at a stage where the software exists for the vendors, and what they really need is customer push to make sure the sales and marketing folks drive that into final product. So I see it from the vendor side, engineering side, but now we need the people who control the budget dollars to get pushed by purchasers. So at this point, it's not a technical issue anymore. The interest is there. Now it's a marketing issue.
Brilliant, thank you. So we've got an anonymous attendee, so I won't ask that, who just asked a simple question: is Nifty integration coming to the OHIF viewer? Can I ask James to come online and tell us a bit of the background about that?
Sure. So the original OHIF viewer, I tend to think of it as OHIF vanilla, was created by the Radiology Department of Massachusetts General Hospital and Radical Imaging to do medical imaging and clinical trials. And essentially, if you're doing clinical imaging, the only game in town is DICOM. And there are a number of good reasons for this. DICOM has a very clearly defined patient-based coordinate system. It defines exactly where the image plane is in 3D space and how it's oriented. It even defines that the first pixel is the top left corner of the image. X always increases to the left of the patient, Y increases towards the posterior, and Z increases towards the head. So DICOM has a very clear, consistent definition of where things are in 3D. Nifty does not appear to have this. And I was checking the spec this morning, and there are 3 different ways of storing the coordinate system, 4 different supposedly standard coordinate systems that you can use. 2 of the axes are inverted relative to DICOM. And the DICOM spec is very short and clear on how the coordinate system works. But the Nifty documentation in the header file runs to several pages. So not only can you do lots of different things in Nifty, including having left-handed and right-handed coordinate systems, there's no consistency at all in how it's spec'd up. And this matches with my experience of Nifty datasets from other groups. Is, axes will be inverted. When you're expecting to see head through to foot, you'll see foot through to head, or you will see images turned upside down, so it looks like the patient's lying on their belly when they were lying on their back. And fundamentally, it seems to me that when you take clearly defined clinical DICOM images and then transform that into a different format, whether it's Nifty or whether it's something else, and you then analyze it, you assume complete responsibility for being able to invert that transformation and put it back into properly oriented DICOM in order for it to be displayed. Now, people asking for, can we just import Nifty into the OHIF viewer? Well, that's one of the reasons that it is, I think, impossible to do reliably, because we have no way of knowing what transformation you've applied to the data, because Nifty just doesn't seem to contain any of that metadata in the header at all. So the second,
James,
sorry, go ahead, Simon.
Let me just respond to that and point out, Mark has put a comment in the chat to say that there is orientation information in the Nifty in the Nifty header, which is certainly true. I think one of the issues is that orientation information is not mandatory, and one of the issues that we face in developing these viewers is that it's fine if you happen to get conforming data that come in and you'll be able to display it, but if you can't guarantee that will always be the case, then you face problems. Sorry, James, I interrupted.
No, that's fine. And the other thing that the vanilla OHIF Viewer relies on completely is the DICOM UIDs to actually relate different parts of a data set to each other. And this goes all the way down to the DICOM web, which is its default method of fetching data. Because when you fetch the data back, you specify the UIDs that you want. And Nifty does not seem to have any way of relating one set of data to another set of data. So without those relationships, which are thrown away in converting to Nifty, it's very difficult for us to work out what relates to what and then display it correctly.
So at that point, can I ask anybody who is a bids expert and if there are any flywheel people on here, or anybody who knows something about bids, to maybe put the counterpoint to that?
Hey, Simon, I wonder if in the interest of time, we're only about 5 more minutes.
Yeah, okay.
This would be since I think this actually is something a lot of people care about. I think it's something maybe we can find a common interest in the poster session for folks.
Absolutely. So come and chat in the poster session. One thing that I wanted to get to, which I didn't earlier, was a question about performance, because the big thing that's really killing us at the moment, and we have this really nice viewer. I think everybody likes using it as soon as the images are loaded, but it's driving our radiologists completely mad. I saw a comment. I just scroll to and try and find the question. There was a comment about or a question about, do we have progress bars? I think Mo was just telling me in a meeting this morning about progress bars. But Mo, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, sure. I replied to the question that we are working on it, and it's showing a progress bar for all the scans, and there will be an option for the user to choose whether to start loading all the scans simultaneously while viewing one scan, rather than waiting to switch to a specific scan to download its data.
So I'm just going to quickly share my screen again. You should see this. So what you're seeing here is the developer tools on Chrome, just looking at what's happening when we load a large 3D CT scan. So this is 512, not even that large, it's 512 by 512 by 134. And what you can see here is a whole load of network traffic, and if you analyze any one of those, all of these are SOP instance UIDs that are being loaded here. If you analyze any one of those, look at what you get. The process is stalled for a while because there's other stuff happening. And even when it does start getting processed, you're waiting for this really quite long length of time, and then the actual download time, the content download, is actually very short. And so repeat requests are really inefficient for doing these things. And we need to try and figure out quicker ways of getting data into the OHIF viewer. And so that's going to be a big focus of some of the stuff we do in future.
Okay, I wonder, you'd mentioned some of the flywheel developments. I think performance is an area where there's some work going on. I wonder if Kate might comment on that and some of the other things that are happening on the flywheel side.
Sure, absolutely. So on the performance side, there are a couple of things being considered, one of which is actually moving some of the work to the server side. Also potentially loading low-res images first and then backfilling with the high-res once that can be available. We are working with the Radical team on this point as well, just to make sure that they're kind of in the loop. Other flywheel projects include 3D support for 3D viewing. I can kind of show that maybe. And then also similar work in a rapid reader and some exciting developments there. So we will, of course, be working closely with Simon and his team to make sure that those things come to XNAT as well.
And I'll just tell you that the pathology folks are quite used to loading low-res images first and then backfilling. That is, that is what they do. So I'm glad to know that you're exploring that as well.
Excellent. And can you see this little 3D demo?
Hey. Looks really nice, Kate.
Yeah.
Indeed. So, Simon, I'm going to give you guys a couple of extra minutes before we transition to the next one. I would love to hear your thoughts, and there are a number of questions about general support for RT struct, RT dose, other RT DICOM formats. Okay,
so yeah, this is something that is quite dear to our heart as well. We work, and Mark Modat knows this well too. He works with them as well, as an organization called RTTQA in the United Kingdom, which is the Radiotherapy Trials Quality Assurance organization. And they're interested in doing precisely this, looking at RT structs and the other radiotherapy modalities. At the moment, I think they've given us some feedback on our initial version 3.0 when we released that, and we're sort of it's a sort of funding question at the moment. They're hoping to get back to us to say what they can fund, and what's going to be possible. But it's just a resource issue, and any help doing stuff like that, we'll be interested to talk to people.
So one more final question from me, and then we'll move to the next town hall. How are you thinking about, I know there's a new version of OHIF, I'm not sure exactly when it's being released. I think I heard there was a pre-release already out. How are you thinking about next versions of our viewer in relation to OHIF ongoing development?
Mo, can I toss that one over to you?
Sure, yeah. Actually, just recently, OHIF team announced that they are not going to support version 2 anymore in the near future, and they're going to focus on version 3. I'm not sure if you, Dan, have seen a demo for version 3 yet, and there is like major changes in the layout. Whether those changes will look, appealing or look, because I guess there will be like lots of changes again. So there is no way that we can end up with a simple forking and deploying and simple changes. But in general, to migrate from version 2 to version 3, we're expecting the process to take around a month.
So yeah, I guess it's a watch this space, and again, it'll be driven by priorities in the just what the community priorities are. So one of the real exercises, and it'd be great to have a chat, is to figure out what are the top priorities for people in the field. Is it getting microscopy? Is it getting a transition to version 3? What would you like us to do first? And what fits with the flywheel developments and so on?
Yeah, I can run like 1 minute quick demo of version 3 or version 3.
Is that better, Dan? We don't want to run too much over time. Shall we run that?
I'm interested to see it, and I'm willing to sacrifice a few of my minutes for my stuff. Good to see it.
Okay. Mo, have you got that on the screen share?
Yeah. So trying the demo. Okay, just selecting. So the study list is, okay, we don't use the study list with the XNAT OHIF Viewer, but this comes with vanilla OHIF Viewer. So on the left, you see like the studies. So they try to save, to create an extra row in the top by moving the panel, but they again added some info here on the top of the image. So just lots of changes in the layout. I'm not sure if this will look friendly to the users, but this look and feel we can always change it, so there's no problem about that. So they dedicated for annotation just specific toolbar menu, and for the other tools another toolbar menu. If we're talking about our ROI toolbar menus, okay, they will come somewhere here. The generic structure is about the same. I mean, technical wise and coding wise, is making it easier and to integrate other third-party tools. So supposed to be less hassle in adding new features for us. Supposed to be, but I didn't try building it yet.
So in general, the other one last thing to say about the OHIF project is that they have an awful lot of different versions of the viewer on the go at the moment. You look at their repository, it's really difficult to find what is the current viewer, and that's something, Dan, I think we've talked about before, as to it'd be really good to be able to rationalize development in some way.
For sure, and I in fact reached out to Gordon Harris last week, recommending to him that we form a steering committee around OHIF development, so that the community of those folks of us who are developing around it can have a little more input and awareness of how it's being developed and helping to prioritize development paths. He seemed quite open to that. And I think in general is open to a little more governance around kind of how the OHIF.
Because I think one of the things that can happen is that they introduce quite major architectural changes at short notice that make it very difficult for everybody else in the field to follow. Exactly.
All right, this was a fascinating and super important topic. So Simon, thanks for organizing. Do you have any quick wrap up before we head over to the next?
No, just to say that we'll try and hang out somewhere in spatial chat and just get a group together, and maybe at the end of the workshop or something like that, just find space to discuss.
Great, thank you, Simon. All right, our next session is on containers, and I think Matt Kelsey is going to kick that off.